You know, in Piro's recent response to Professor Anton, he talked about, yeah, how as a being a from an academic standpoint, rather than delete earlier videos that maybe convey an opinion you disagree with, you should just say, "Hey, I changed my mind. This is my view now." Um, and I think that's fine. But it's interesting that someone who's new to YouTube could do a video search for some topic, find your earlier video, and be and uh, and be like agreeing with it, or 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 maybe disagreeing with it, and posting comments about it, and you're like, whoa, wait, I'm like over it, man. I'm like, that's not me anymore. And it kind of reminds me of a recent blog post I saw. It was basically saying how the internet has made the past more present than before. Like, it's why in our politics, if a politician changes their mind about something, that it's more likely to be portrayed as a contradiction, or a flip flop or what have you, um, than it is to be a reconsideration of one's opinion. Um, I think that's in part because we distrust politicians, but also because the past, because they can hash up their old quote from you know 10, 15 years ago, and be like, aha, this guy's a hypocrite. He said one thing and then says another thing, um, and and so it's really interesting how the information age has kind of um, made the past more present to us like that. Um, but it's also interesting to me is how uh, people can be influenced by the past opinions of someone who has changed their mind. Um, I think the biggest example I think of is Wittgenstein. Yeah, there really in philosophy you've really got two Wittgensteins. You got early Wittgenstein of the Tractatus and later Wittgenstein of philosophical investigations. Yeah, because I mean Wittgenstein when he wrote the Tractatus, it was like hailed as the biggest philosophical achievement of its time. And then he later wrote, and which was the philosophical investigations, but it was posthumously published, in which he basically refuted his earlier work. And yet there's still philosophers who are influenced by the Tractatus, and I think that was a better work than philosophical investigations. I happen to be more a fan of later Wittgenstein, but there are some who like earlier Wittgenstein and continue to hail his influence. So it's kind of interesting, and then also in music and art, I find it's almost uh, there's almost like an expiration date on bands. Like there's usually it's considered that bands reach a certain zenith point and then it's downhill from there. And the best band I can think of as an example of that is Metallica. I mean, it's just so cliche now to love early Metallica and hate later Metallica, and I'm one of those who agrees with that with that basic evaluation. Um, and there's a lot of uh, it's basically in art. It's kind of considered that you have your career reaches a certain height, and then you kind of you lose that spark, and then things just go downhill for you. And if you're lucky, you end up continuing to play the classics to a bunch of aging fans for the rest of your life, or you either that or you go and yeah, or you take the rock star's way out and OD on heroin you know, burn out early. Um, which reminds me of Doug Stanhope quote where we're talking about what if it's so bad that bands all his musicians burned out early. He's like, how do you know? How do you know what they had left in them? Maybe Jimi Hendrix was done. How do you know that he wouldn't have just gone on to play the Super Bowl halftime show with with Paul McCartney and a bunch of other washed up people? you know, and it's an interesting question to ask. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting um, how kind of atemporal our experience of other people is, um, and how we characterize them often by a certain time period in which they're writing, or in which they're doing their work, and often, uh, no, and I've sort of boxed them into that, like I mean, Bob Dylan continued writing. He continues to write songs to this day, but like most of us now would sort of think of him in terms of this, like in terms of back in the '60s, when he was at his zenith, basically, um, and I guess that's all I'm trying to say is how um, the sort of information we have available to us now allows us to detemporalize people, and that can cause confusions as the past uh, goes into the present through these recordings. So I guess that's it for now. Peace.